Good evening and welcome to TVB News. President Xi Jinping has signed a presidential order appointing Li Qiang as premier, succeeding Li Keqiang. Li's appointment was endorsed at a plenary meeting of the National Legislature this morning. Some 3,000 delegates also endorsed the new leadership for the Central Military Commission, including its vice chairman. The fourth plenary meeting of the first session of the 14th National People's Congress took place in Beijing this morning. Nearly 3,000 NPC deputies voted to approve the premiership nomination of Li Qiang by the newly elected President Xi Jinping. Xi was the first to place his ballot, followed by the 6 Politburo Standing Committee members and Vice President Han Zheng. Li garnered 2,936 supporting votes, with 3 opposing and 8 abstentions. He was officially appointed premier after President Xi signed a presidential decree. That also means Li Keqiang, who served as premier for 10 years, has stepped down. Li Qiang then took an oath of allegiance to the country's constitution.
To safeguard the constitution authority, fulfill my legal obligations, be loyal to the country and the people, be committed and honest in my duty, accept the people's supervision, and work for a great modern socialist country that is prosperous, strong, democratic, culturally advanced, harmonious, and beautiful.
The new state military leadership was also confirmed today. Zhang Youxia and He Weidong were endorsed as vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. Li Shangfu, Liu Zhenli, Miao Hua, and Zhang Shengmin were endorsed as members of the commission. Liu Jingguo was elected director of the National Commission of Supervision. Zhang Jun was re-elected president of the Supreme People's Court, and Ying Yong, the new Procurator General of the Supreme People's Procuratorate. Meanwhile, another plenary meeting scheduled for tomorrow will decide on the appointment of leaders, including vice chairman of the State Council and departmental officials. The NPC also elected its standing committee members today. Starry Lee, chairwoman of the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress in Hong Kong, became the youngest delegate from the SAR to become an NPC standing committee member. During today's plenary meeting, out of 172 candidates, 159 standing committee members were elected to serve in the National Legislature for the new term. Starry Lee was the sole Hong Kong delegate. Lee secured 2,901 supporting votes, with 53 opposing and 3 abstentions. Taking over the post from Tam Yiu-chung, Lee thanked the country for its trust.
It is my great honor to be able to be one of the members, and I understand that it is a great responsibility.
The newly elected standing committee member said there were 3 main aspects to work on in future.
Get in touch with different sectors of the community, listen to them, and so that I can design my work through different talks or seminars or sharings to let Hong Kong people understand more about the relationship between constitution and basic law, and also the national security law, to integrate further into the Greater Bay Area, especially because this is a great opportunity.
The 48-year-old is the youngest to become a Hong Kong Standing Committee member to the NPC. Starry Lee was an accountant before she set foot in politics in 1999. She became a lawmaker in 2008 and in 2015 succeeded Tam Yiu-chung as chairman of the DAB. Since the city's handover to Chinese rule, several Hong Kong people have served in the National People's Congress Standing Committee. They include entrepreneur Zheng Hin-chi and former LegCo President Rita Fan. The first session of the 14th National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference concluded today. 4 resolutions were approved during the meeting. They include the resolutions on the amendment to the CPPCC Charter. Wang Huning, the new chairman of the nation's top political advisory body, delivered a speech. He said the CPPCC should continue to improve their grasp in politics, research, and coordination abilities. He added the body should continue the guiding principles under President Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. Members should also stand firm in major issues and be bold in voicing their concerns. He also thanked outgoing CPPCC chairman Wang Yang for his important contributions. In other news now, Government Pandemic Advisor Professor David Hui said the COVID pandemic has ended. He revealed that health authorities will discuss later this month whether COVID vaccines should be regularly administered to the public. Jackie Lin with more.
On this very day, 3 years ago, the World Health Organization declared the COVID outbreak a global pandemic. Today, a familiar face in the city's battle against the novel coronavirus said Hong Kong's COVID pandemic is over. Speaking on the radio program, Government Health Advisor Professor David Hui said this watershed moment has been corroborated by ongoing data in recent days. He noted local infections these days mainly involve the Omicron BA.5 and BA.2 variants, which are higher in transmissibility but lower in mortality rates. The number of severe cases and COVID-related deaths has remained in the single digits as well. Plus the low viral loads in sewage samples, Dr. Hui said the data reflected the COVID situation in the SAR is stable with a very strong immunity barrier. He said with the pandemic deemed over, the Center for Health Protection will discuss with a scientific committee at the end of this month on whether COVID jabs should be administered to the public on a regular basis. And they will take a cue from the outcome of the World Health Organization's meeting on COVID vaccination arrangements, also happening later this month.
I guess the elderly, those who have chronic illness, those who are immunocompromised, they will definitely need to have regular jabs. But the frequency, we need to wait for the recommendation by the WHO, probably maybe every 12 months or so.
Professor Hui also reflected on the city's 5th wave of the outbreak.
Vaccine hesitancy was a big problem. Many elderly were unvaccinated or not fully vaccinated. So they developed very severe disease and require hospitalization. At that time, we were also implementing the containment policy. That actually flooded the hospital, overload the hospital system.
He said home isolation for mild cases should have been introduced earlier to ease pressures on the public health sector. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Elizabeth Tang, the wife of former opposition lawmaker Lee Cheuk-yan, has been granted $200,000 bail after being held for 2 days over suspected collusion with foreign elements under the national security law. The 65-year-old was arrested outside Stanley Prison on Thursday after visiting her detained husband. Upon release, Tang told reporters that she did not understand why she was accused of violating the national security law. She said her work has always been related to labor rights and trade unions. Meanwhile, it's understood her 63-year-old sister has also been arrested by the National Security Police in relation to Tang's case. That's on suspicion of perverting the course of justice. A 65-year-old lawyer who is the brother of former lawmaker Albert Ho was also arrested on the same allegation. 3 former members of the Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements of China have been sentenced to 4.5 months behind bars. That's for not complying with a request for information by the National Security Police. They are Chow Hang-tung, the group's former vice chairman, and 2 committee members Tang Ngok-kwan and Choi Hon-kwong. In 2021, National Security Police accused the alliance of being a foreign agent and requested the submissions of meeting minutes and information about its members. The group failed to submit the police, and the police later laid charges against the committee members. In a diplomatic deal brokered by China, Saudi Arabia and Iran have agreed to restore diplomatic relations. Officials from the 2 Arab nations that symbolize the Sunni-Shiite split in the Middle East held talks in Beijing from March 6th to 10th, according to a trilateral statement. The statement added that the agreement came about through dialogue and diplomatic means. Nazvi Karim reports.
The deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran has implications that go beyond the obvious. Playing a key role behind the resumption of diplomatic relations and the prospect of an end to the war in Yemen are efforts by China, which is acting as a regional peacemaker and carrying increasing global clout politically and economically. Brokering a deal between nations that are ideologically opposites is a major success for China, potentially opening up more opportunities for its transcontinental Belt and Road Initiative. It also suggests a gradual shift for countries that see China as taking on a more influential role as a global leader. The deal was announced after 4 days of secret talks in Beijing between top security officials from the two Middle East powers. Tehran and Riyadh agreed to resume diplomatic relations and reopen embassies within 2 months, according to a statement issued by Iran, Saudi Arabia and China. The US said it welcomed the move, though Washington's stance on reviving the stalled 2015 nuclear deal with Iran remains the same.
We welcome any efforts to help end the war in Yemen and de-escalate tensions in the Middle East region. De-escalation and diplomacy together with deterrence are key pillars of the policy that President Biden outlined during his visit in July in the region.
Riyadh cut diplomatic ties with Tehran in early 2016 in response to attacks on Saudi diplomatic missions in Iran after majority Sunni Muslim Saudi executed a Shiite cleric. Both countries thanked China for hosting, supporting and contributing to the success of the talks, as well as Iraq and Oman for hosting many rounds of discussions. Wang Yi, director of the Office of the Foreign Affairs Commission of the Communist Party of China, hailed both sides in efforts to work for the common bright future with patience and wisdom. He said China would continue to play a constructive role in the improvement of ties between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and French Prime Minister Emmanuel Macron held a joint press conference in Paris on Friday. The two leaders announced a major agreement to jointly deal with migrants crossing the British Channel. Nazvi Karim reports.
More than 3 years after Brexit caused a rift between Britain and France, the two countries are ready for a fresh start in their relationship. One of the first steps in restoring friendly ties is Britain's payment to France of £480 million over 3 years to stop migrants travelling in small boats across the Channel. The announcement was made at a joint press conference in Paris on Friday by British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron.
If we're honest, the relationship between our two countries has had its challenges in recent years. But I believe today's meeting does mark a new beginning, an entente renewed. We are looking to the future, a future that builds on all that we share.
The funds will help to enhance patrols, the use of drones and a detention centre for migrants. The two leaders also agreed to rebuild ties after years of bickering over Brexit. Saying it was time for a new start in British-French relations, Macron said the migrants deal will provide better surveillance and intervention capacity on French soil. Sunak's new policy on migrants has caused controversy back home, with the issue spilling onto the sports arena.
I've got a train to catch.
Former England football captain Gary Lineker has been suspended as host of the Match of the Day programme on the BBC for criticising the migrant policy on social media. The BBC said it considered Lineker's comments to be a breach of its guidelines on neutrality when it comes to government politics. The popular football programme will be without any anchors after fellow pundits Ian Wright, Alan Shearer and Alex Scott decided not to appear in solidarity with Lineker. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
Developed and built in China, the world's largest container ship has been delivered in Shanghai. The Mediterranean Tessa measures 400 meters long, 16 meters longer than the world's biggest aircraft carrier. It also has a deck area equivalent to 4 standard football fields. It is able to carry 240,000 tons of cargo at one time. The ship will transport goods between China's Ningbo City and Rotterdam in the Netherlands, one of the world's busiest cargo shipping routes. Floods and wintry storms have hit the U.S., causing widespread disruption. California has seen extensive flooding with 9,000 people under an evacuation order. David Garrett reports.
California, known as the Golden State for its sunshine, doesn't normally look like this in March. This footage uploaded to social media shows raging floodwaters that have encircled homes in Kern River. Heavy recent rains and melting snow have set off the raging floodwaters. In Soquel, south of San Francisco, there have been landslides. Even elderly residents say they have not seen this before. The cleanup operation is already in place and people are trying to adapt.
Well, I was heading down to the gym at like 6:30 in the morning, and then I come down and I see all this caution tape, and I'm like, okay. And I just got out of my car. I had no idea what was going on. There was only like another person or two down here at that time. And yeah, walked out and saw that the road was gone. And I'm like, okay, guess I got to change my gym plans.
In another part of the US, it is snow that is the problem. The latest winter storm made travel difficult across the city of Chicago and the surrounding area. Some suburbs north of the city have seen over 8 inches. Even snow plows were getting stuck. Crews at Detroit Metropolitan Airport were busy clearing snow from the runways. All the runways had to be closed temporarily and no planes could leave. David Garrett, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thanks for watching.